Hello, friends. This is Dave Hurwitz, executive editor at ClassicsToday.com, here with the Haydn Symphony Crusade number 12, Symphony number 12. And I gotta tell you, even for Haydn, Symphony number 12 is extraordinary. It does some things that music had never done before. I really mean that. And we're going to see exactly what those things are. You know, one of the things I mentioned in talking about the symphonies up to this point is that each one seems to have an overall sort of guiding principle, something that Haydn uses to knit all of the movements together and to create a cohesive whole. And this one is no exception. But it's paradoxical in that in this particular symphony, the thing that Haydn is trying to use and successfully uses, brilliantly uses, to generate an entirely new form of musical syntax is discontinuity or incongruity. And I mean, it's like a miracle that he does this. It's so fascinating to hear how he does this and to see what expressive depths it gives the music. It's totally extraordinary. I mean, I'm so excited about this. I really, it just blows my mind. I hope to stay coherent while I describe it to you. This is just a little 3-movement symphony. It lasts 16 minutes. It's scored for the usual forces that Haydn had at the time, which is 2 oboes, 2 horns, a bassoon on the bottom, and strings with an extra harpsichord for continuo part on the bottom in this performance, which is the Naxos recording with the Sinfonia Finlandia under Patrick Galois. It's a beautiful performance of this symphony, by the way. But the things that Haydn does here just are amazing. Like, for example, let me give you an example. Do you remember I told you about how in one of the earlier symphonies, I don't even remember which one, to be honest, but we were talking about how Haydn uses unusual phrasing, unusual phrase length to create variety and to give the music an unexpected character and keep you listening forward. Well, something similar happens here, except that here's the thing that's so amazing. The opening melody, the opening tune of this symphony is a perfectly regular 8-bar phrase. Nothing in music is more regular than an 8-bar tune, and that's what Haydn gives us. But nothing sounds less regular than this 8-bar tune. Listen to it. I'm just going to play it for you. Listen to it now. See what I mean? What could sound more lopsided or discontinuous? It has 2 phrases. Each of them are 4 perfectly normal bars long. They're supposed to balance, but one of them has a sort of chopped off ending and a little tail, doo-doo, that little 2-note tail, right? And the second one sounds rhythmically very irregular because its theme is presented in canon. That is, it's like a canon, like row your boat. One part starts and the other one follows. But by doing that, the thing sounds uncoordinated. It sounds out of whack, out of rhythm. So this perfectly regular 8-bar phrase sounds as irregular as it possibly could. And that's the secret to this symphony. It's the discontinuities occur within a very highly organized structure. And that means that the piece never falls apart, number one. And number two, it gives Haydn the opportunity to do all kinds of extraordinary things. And we're going to hear more of them. But just that particular opening. Listen to it again. I'm going to play it again. You see, this little opening is the key to the whole symphony. It really is, especially the first and last movements. Just that little 2-note squiggle, you know, that very little tiny 2-note squiggle, doo-doo. The entire thematic substance of this first movement is based on that squiggle. And you're going to hear it again in the finale. I'm giving you advance warning. That thing is so important. And we're going to hear the whole symphony, by the way, without repeats, but the whole symphony. It's about 16 minutes long, but without repeats, of course, it's half that. So there you go. It is amazing to see what Haydn does with it. But the other amazing thing about this symphony is that The first movement is monothematic sonata form because of that two-note squiggle. Everything is going to be based on the two-note squiggle and the canonic version of the second phrase of that first theme, with one part following the other. The second subject of that sonata form is based on a two-note squiggle presented in canon between the upper and lower strings. So it's very, very clear that this little phrase, expanded and enlarged and developed, is going to be the source of all of the thematic material that we hear in this sonata movement, with one huge exception. The exception is the development section. Why? This is the movement that tells you how useless it is to worry about textbook versions of what sonata form is supposed to be. Remember, we talked about sonata form having a first subject, a second subject in the exposition, which is repeated, then a development section, which develops the material that we've heard so far, and then a recapitulation, which restates the first and second subjects, all in their original home key. That's the textbook definition. You'd never know it to listen to this movement. Why? Because the entire exposition is based on the little two-note squiggle and the little canonic thing we heard at the beginning. It's been developing from the first bar. It's all development. That's what the whole exposition is. And when I play you the whole movement, I'm going to indicate exposition, development, recapitulation, so you'll hear exactly in which subjects they are. You'll hear exactly where everything is in the traditional sonata form. But the development is what they call in the sonata business episodic. And episodic development means it has nothing to do with anything else in the movement. It's all new material. That two-note squiggle might as well not even exist as far as the development is concerned. And I'm going to play you now the development section separately so you can just hear it and hear how completely distinct it is from anything you heard in that first theme. Here it is. Here's the development section. See what I mean? And it's interesting, isn't it? The opening with those long notes, it's spooky, it's pensive. Why can it have this kind of expressive impact? The reason it will, and separately, it's not nearly as impressive as it is in the context of the whole movement. It has such an expressive impact because it's based on completely different material. It sounds unexpected. It sounds strange. And that's the whole point. But Haydn gets away with it because the outer sections are so intensely based on the same material. So we look forward to hearing something fresh. We want to hear something different. But having heard something different, it feels good to come back home, to get back to that which is familiar. That makes it even more satisfying. And so the movement follows and adheres to the sonata principle, the idea of a journey where you depart and visit foreign lands and return, but it does it in a wholly new and wonderful, wonderful way. It's a fantastic piece of music. So I want you just to keep all of this in mind, if you can, while we listen to it. The two-note squiggle, the little canonic thing, the canon, which is the second subject, the episodic development, and now I'm going to play the entire movement all the way through. Give it a listen. splendid, amazing piece of music, one in which discontinuity, interruption, is used to actually create an organic, fabulously satisfying, immensely well integrated whole. That is genius, folks. That is genius on the rampage. Now, the slow movement. Oh boy, this is a great slow movement. First of all, it's in a minor key. It's really tragic almost in terms of its emotional expression. The opening melody is a Siciliana, which is it's in a 6/8 rhythm that goes dum ba dum bum ba dum bum. But it's the same rhythm as, pastoral music. We talked about that before, where you have something like, for example, the tune Silent Night, the Christmas carol. Da da dum ba dum ba. That kind of rhythm. It's often used for lullabies. But this one, when it's in a minor key like this, it becomes very, very elegiac. In fact, the theme is very similar to the Lacrimosa from the Mozart Requiem. Do you know that tune? It goes la da 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 da. I can't do it. I'm not going to try. But when you hear this, if you know the Lacrimosa from the Mozart Requiem, this will sound familiar. But here's the point. The point is that rhythm, that lullaby rhythm, is constantly interrupted. It never really gets it together. And in this case, the objects of interruption are dynamics, and again, rhythm that does not fit that very rhythmic dum ba dum bum ba dum bum pattern. And it's extraordinary just how disturbing the music is as a result, because it wants to have to it's as if the music wants to mourn, but it's too distracted to do it. And the result is incredibly troubling. It really is. It's more than just sad. It's disturbing. I mean, it's disturbingly sad. It really is. And it's absolutely fabulous in the way that Haydn does it. And the other textural element that really helps create that sense of disruptive urgency in what is really a very slow movement, it's an adagio, is the contrast between harmony and unison. Unison means the whole orchestra plays the same thing all at once. In this case, loudly. So you've got eruptive contrasts of loud and soft, constant interruptions in rhythm, and very declamatory, stern, somewhat forbidding phrases uttered by the entire orchestra in unison. And again, I'll mark some of these things too, just so you know how to pay attention during the exposition, because this movement's also in sonata form. And then for the rest of it, you're on your own. I'm just going to let you listen. But listen to the whole movement. It's 4 minutes, 8 minutes with repeats. It's a very long movement for a symphony of this size. But that's because the amount of emotion and expression that it contains is huge, and it needs room in order to let all of that sink in. So here is the Adagio. I think you'll agree that in this movement, Haydn has reached a depth of emotional expression, of tragic emotional expression, sad emotional expression, that is completely new to these symphonies. There isn't anything in the prior symphonies that matches this in terms of its feeling of passionate intensity. It really is an extraordinary, extraordinary movement. And Haydn achieves it, again, by disrupting the flow, by doing things that are completely unexpected, but he does it in such a way that we have a pattern of tension and release, and with an overall form that somehow makes it meaningful to us, that makes it sound logical at the same time that it's illogical. It's a paradox. What can I tell you? It's a paradox. It's fascinating. Absolutely fascinating. In fact, the exposition of this slow movement also partakes of some of that irregular phrasing we talked about earlier. The first phrase is 11 bars long. I mean, it's straight 11 bars. There's no way to divide it up in any other way that makes sense. The exposition itself is 11 plus 8 plus 8. It's 27 bars. It's very, very odd. And the music sounds that. It's troubled music. Now, the finale is another one of those rollicking, happy, jolly finales. But even more than Haydn's other finales so far, it really summarizes everything that we've heard so far. In the first place, the opening theme is based entirely on two-note squiggles. Entirely. I mean, in the first movement, the squiggle went down. It went da-dum. Well, now they go up. Da-dum. Big deal, right? It's a two-note squiggle. In fact, I'm going to play you the opening theme of the first movement and then the opening theme of the finale with just a half a second pause between them so you can hear, because they sound so audibly related. They really do. It's a fascinating resemblance. And just think of that da-dum, da-dum, ba-dum, ba-dum, ba-dum. You know, if you put them together, this is what you get. So here's the opening theme of the first movement and the opening theme of the finale, and you'll hear the relationship immediately. Another thing that's fascinating about the opening theme of the finale is that it belongs to the same family as the finale of Mozart's famous G minor symphony. Remember that one? Ba-dum bum 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 ba-dum ba-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-dum ba-dum bum 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 ba-dum ba-da-da-da-da-da-da-dum, right? Well, this theme that you will hear is audibly related to that. But in addition to having the little two-note squiggle on which the first theme is based, this movement has a separate second subject which drops into a dramatic minor key, a wonderful minor key, and it has big unison proclamations, as in the slow movement, which I will also indicate for you, and a fantastic canonical opening to the finale. So everything that we've heard so far in the previous two movements gets incorporated into this movement. And the fascinating thing about it is that whereas those elements were terribly disruptive in the first two movements, this finale resolves all of that because it's all integrated effortlessly and seamlessly and logically and happily, and it makes us feel so relieved that all of these elements that we previously found spooky or odd or threatening or distinctive or unusual have now seem to find there we go, their natural place, their home. The symphony has arrived home safely. Not just the individual movements, but the work as a whole. And so here is the finale, the entire finale. don't know what else to say. I just think it is such an extraordinary thing that Haydn has done in this symphony. And I just hope that you've heard some of it, and that this little discussion and these musical examples and things that I've presented have allowed you to hear just what a remarkable piece it is. Because the idea of using incongruity, disruptive elements, alien forces, foreign bodies, but not having those destroy the organic and overall cohesion of the entire work. That is such an amazing, amazing gift to us, to music in general. Haydn was going to exploit this for the rest of his career, and nobody did it better. I mean, nobody, zip, nobody. I mean, there are other composers who did other things, but when it came to that kind of ability to absorb things that you would never believe should be there, Haydn was absolutely the best. And this is the first symphony where he really, really does it and lets us hear it. And I just love this symphony. I mean, if you have 16 minutes to just relax and listen to something, listen to number 12. It's another one of those symphonies. Nobody pays attention to these symphonies. Nobody listens to them. They don't get programmed. They don't get played very often. They don't get recorded very often. And boy, are we all missing something because of that. These symphonies need to be respected and admired for the brilliant, brilliant creations of genius that they are. It's overwhelmingly obvious in my point of view. So keep on listening, folks. Thank you for joining me, and I can't wait till the next time. Take care.